Malia pressed her forehead against the rough bark of the ancient fig tree, its sprawling roots and branches twisting up towards the sky in a graceful tangle, like a gnarled hand reaching for the heavens. Her fingertips traced the grooves etched into the weathered wood, decades of memories and wishes carved by countless hopeful hearts. She closed her eyes, tuning out the chatter of tourists milling by the iconic tree in the center of the town square. In her mind, Malia retreated to a simpler time, when she was an idealistic adolescent pressing love notes and daydreams between the pages of her journal. A time when this very tree, known by locals as the Wishing Tree, held the secrets to her soul and her heart. "Ma!" A familiar voice cut through her reverie. "There you are. Your mom said I might find you here." Malia's eyes fluttered open to see Jason, handsome as ever with his chiseled jaw and eyes that sparkled like the sea under the Hawaiian sun. Her childhood best friend, her first love, the one who knew her better than anyone, and the one who had shattered her heart 10 years ago when he left the island without a word. "Your mom said you were back in town. I didn't quite believe it until now," Jason said, searching her face. "It's been a long time. A lifetime," Malia replied, pulling away from the tree and steeling herself against the flood of emotions threatening to overtake her. "But some things haven't changed." She gestured to the tree, reminding them both of the infinite afternoons they spent perched in its branches, trading stories and dreams for the future. The day they'd carved their initials, M+J, inside a heart. The night before Jason left, when they'd made a wish on a falling star, suspended in that last perfect moment. "Why did you leave, Jace? And why did you come back?" The questions Malia had held inside for a decade spilled out, more an accusation than an inquiry. Jason let out a heavy sigh, his gaze downcast. "I was young and stupid, thought I needed to get off this rock, see the world, chase bigger dreams. By the time I realized what I'd left behind, it seemed too late. Took me 10 years to work up the courage to come back and face you." "And what about now? What do you want?" Malia asked, hating the way her voice quivered. "A second chance. To make things right." Jason took a step closer, his eyes boring into hers with an intensity she'd never forgotten. "I know I hurt you, and I'm sorrier than you can ever know. But I never stopped loving you, Malia. You were always with me, every step, every mile." Malia swallowed the lump in her throat, fighting back tears. A part of her wanted to fall into his arms, to erase the years apart and start anew. But the scar tissue had settled thick around her heart, a protective shield against the pain. "I'm not the same girl I was back then. I've built a life here. I can't just drop everything for an apology 10 years too late." She squared her shoulders, mustering the strength to walk away. "I don't expect you to," Jason replied softly. "But do you think maybe we could start over as friends? Get to know each other again?" Malia hesitated, glancing back at the Wishing Tree. Its branches seemed to sway in the breeze, as if whispering words of forgiveness, second chances. Maybe even this old tree believed in new beginnings. "I'd like that," she said at last, a fragile smile spreading across her face. "I have some time before my next dance class. Care to join me for a coffee?" As they walked together towards the quaint seaside cafe, chatting and laughing like old times, the weight began to lift from Malia's shoulders. Jason told her about his travels around the world, the incredible sights and people he'd met. She filled him in on her work teaching dance to local children, passing along the traditions of their ancestors. Over the rim of her cup, Malia studied Jason, trying to reconcile the man before her with the memory etched in her mind. He was different now, more worldly, mature, grounded, but in many ways still the same kind-hearted, adventurous spirit she'd fallen for all those years ago. Maybe, just maybe, their story wasn't finished yet. As the weeks passed, stolen moments over coffee turned into long walks on the beach, hikes through the verdant mountainside, meals shared as they caught up on a decade apart. Slowly, tentatively, Malia allowed Jason back into her life, reopening doors to her heart she'd long since shut. They talked about everything and nothing, childhood memories, hopes and fears, lessons learned the hard way. Through it all, Malia felt herself falling for Jason all over again, that intoxicating feeling of standing on the precipice, preparing to jump. Do you remember our spot? On the cliffs overlooking Hanauma Bay, Jason asked one night as they carried their sandals, walking barefoot along the moonlit shore. I was thinking we could pack a picnic, watch the sunrise like we used to. Malia froze, the mention of their once special place hitting her like a physical blow. That secluded cove was where they'd shared their first kiss, where she'd given him her heart and body, where she'd gone to weep after he left. It had been their place, one she hadn't returned to in 10 long years. I don't know, Jace, she stammered. Seeing her hesitation, Jason stopped, turning to face her. He took her hands in his touch gentle yet sure. Malia, I know I'm asking a lot, to pick up where we left off like nothing happened. But these past few weeks with you have been the happiest I've been in forever. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. I love you. I don't think I ever stopped. And if there's even a chance you feel the same, I'll spend every day trying to make up for the years we lost. Trying to be the man you deserve. Malia's heart raced, emotions swirling through her like a tempest, love, fear, hope, doubt. She wanted to believe him, to trust in this second chance. But a part of her held back, terrified of having her heart broken all over again. I think I need some time, she whispered, pulling away. Turning, she hurried back down the beach, tears stinging her eyes as Jason called after her. She ran until her legs gave out, collapsing onto the sand, her chest heaving with sobs. The waves crashed rhythmically against the shore, a soothing metronome as she struggled to make sense of her own heart. Malia knew she still loved Jason. That had never been in question. But could she risk it all again? Could she dare to hope for a happily ever after, when life had taught her the hard way that wishing on stars was the stuff of fairy tales? As dawn began painting the horizon in streaks of orange and gold, Malia knew what she needed to do. Wiping away her tears, she stood on shaky legs and began to run once more. But this time, her feet carried her to the wishing tree. Slightly out of breath, she reached the base of the sprawling behemoth, resting her forehead against its familiar trunk just as she had weeks ago. But everything had changed. Her fingers sought out the carving, slightly faded but still visible in the first light of day. M+J. Promise. Prayer. Maybe, she realized, it wasn't about wishes coming true. Maybe it was about being brave enough to chase them, to believe in them, to have faith in love, even after it had let you down. With shaking hands, Malia pulled out her phone and dialed the number she now knew by heart. Jace? It's me. I'm sorry for running off last night. I was scared of being hurt again, of hoping for too much. But I want you to know, I love you too. I always have. She heard his sharp intake of breath over the line. Oh my. Meet me at our spot, the sunset tonight. I think it's time we make a new wish together. As the sun dipped below the horizon that evening, painting the sky in brilliant hues of purple and pink, Malia and Jason sat perched on the cliffs overlooking Hanauma Bay, just as they had so many times before. They knew there were no guarantees, no foolproof wishes. Love was a risk, a leap of faith, but one they were finally brave enough to take. Together, and as the first stars began to twinkle overhead, Malia rested her head on Jason's shoulder, at peace with her choice. Maybe happily ever afters weren't just the stuff of fairy tales. Maybe, with an open heart and the courage to believe, even the most fanciful wishes could come true. Under a sky full of falling stars, Malia closed her eyes and sent up a silent prayer to the wishing tree. Not for perfection or an ironclad promise, but for strength, for faith, for a love that could weather life's storms. It was the wisher, and she was finally ready to write her own ending to their story. One of forgiveness, second chances, and a love that could stand the test of time. As the warm Hawaiian breeze carried the scent of plumeria and the distant strumming of a ukulele, Malia nestled further into Jason's embrace, feeling truly at home for the first time in years. Gazing out over the sprawling seascape, the laughter of beachgoers and the distant crash of waves fading into the background, she felt a profound sense of rightness settle deep in her soul. What are you thinking about? Jason murmured, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. The future, Malia replied softly. Our future. I spent so long being afraid of it, of getting hurt again. But now, I'm ready to dive in headfirst, as long as you're by my side. Jason's arms tightened around her. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. I'm in this for the long haul, Mel. No more running. No more hiding from what's in my heart. You're it for me. Malia twisted in his embrace to face him fully, cupping his face in her hands. I love you, Jason Kahale. I always have and I always will. Their lips met in a tender kiss, a seal of their promise. A commitment to weather whatever storms may come, anchored in the unshakable foundation of their love. As the weeks turned to months, Malia and Jason grew together, their roots intertwining like those of the wishing tree that had borne witness to their story. They faced challenges and celebrated triumphs hand in hand, learning and loving in equal measure. Malia's dance students welcomed Mr. Jason with open arms, giggling as he gamely attempted hula steps and cheering as he mastered the art of strumming the ukulele. He became a fixture at rehearsals and recitals, beaming with pride as Malia's protégés blossomed under her graceful guidance. For his part, Jason found renewed purpose working alongside Malia's father, a respected carpenter renowned for his traditional woodworking techniques. He poured his heart into every carving, every sanded plank, determined to create pieces that would last for generations, just like the love he and Malia shared. As the one-year anniversary of their reunion approached, Jason found himself once again at the base of the wishing tree, a small velvet box clutched in his trembling hand. He'd spent weeks carving the delicate koa wood ring nestled inside, etching a pattern of interwoven leaves to symbolize the unbreakable bond he and Malia had forged. Jace, what's all this? Malia's voice wavered as she approached, taking in the picnic blankets spread beneath the tree, strewn with plumeria petals and flickering candles. Jason dropped to one knee, his heart hammering in his chest as he held out the open ring box. Malia, from the moment I first laid eyes on you, I knew you were special, knew that the love we shared was once in a lifetime. He began, his voice thick with emotion. I know I made mistakes. I know I caused you pain, but loving you, being loved by you, is the greatest gift I've ever been given. And if you'll have me, I want to spend the rest of my days making sure you feel cherished, adored, and appreciated for the incredible woman you are. Tears streamed down Malia's face as she nodded fervently, holding out a shaking hand to allow Jason to slip the ring onto her finger. Yes, she whispered, 1,000 times yes. Jason pulled her into his arms, spinning her around as joyful laughter bubbled up from their chests. They clung to each other, lost in the perfect moment, the culmination of a love story a decade in the making. Malia pulled back just far enough to rest her forehead against Jason's. You know, when I wished on this tree all those years ago, I never could have imagined we'd end up here, she mused. I did, Jason replied softly. From the very first time I carved our initials, I knew it was forever. I just had to grow up a bit to be ready for it. But Mal, loving you? It's the only wish I've ever needed to come true. Under a canopy of stars, in the shadow of the wishing tree that had watched their love story unfold, Malia and Jason sealed their commitment with a kiss, secure in the knowledge that their happily ever after was only just beginning. And as they swayed together to the distant strains of an island melody, the wishing tree stood tall and proud, its branches stretching towards the heavens, content in its knowledge that even the most unlikely wishes could come true, so long as they were made with an open heart and an unwavering faith in the power of love.